Hello, World Xyceres here. So this is McVeytown, which is another one of my bases. There's another base to it, obviously. In this case, this particular one, at this point in time, I was feeling like I should incorporate the tombs into every one of my bases. I decided against it after this, but right now, with this one, I went into this one thinking that I would be able, that I would force myself to work it in, or work the tombs in, which is quite awkward when you spawn into a map and there's a giant spire in the center that goes all the way to the top where the tomb is, and then it goes all the way, and then you have to go all the way down and into like a little hole to get the other one out the back there, which we'll get to in a minute. But this one is a brutal medium. It was made before the standardization of the prestige levels required, so at that point, whenever I was making a brutal, I was generally doing medium rather than large, because you only lose like 1,000 capacity, and it was significantly easier to prestige them at the time. It has 56 raid attempts, 363 kills for a 6.5 kill ratio, which is pretty good. That's one of my best kill ratios. Not really what I was expecting when I built this base, but it kind of works. The accolade ratio, it had 86 for 56 raids, which is roughly a 1.5, with the breakdown being 29 fun, 23 brutal, 16 ingenious, 18 artistic, so mostly fun and brutal. Surprised I got so many artistic on this. It is mostly grey concrete. Anyway, let's jump straight into the play. Okay, and we're back. So we're covering McVeytown. The I've actually already recorded this, but I forgot to record any of my voiceover, so we're redoing it at the moment. So for this one, you'll notice that there is a big box at the top here with a bunch of these locked windows, which I put this like blast mark underneath to make them kind of look a little bit grungy. And they are all over the base in like all directions. It's just to make it look a little bit prettier from the outside because it is all concrete with, I think it's concrete with stone floors and this roofing at the top. It doesn't look particularly pretty, and the fact that it's so high up means that this kind of looks like it might be a big skybox for a kill box, but it actually isn't. It's just built around the tower, though the ending room, you might notice, was a little kill boxy. It's actually down here, in this section down here, which there's no holes in. I've checked multiple times. I did find one at like Prestige 9 that no one had used yet, which I thought was really surprising. But anyway, as we enter it, once again, because it's all fairly bland, I've decided to put this. I decided to go with like this hazard markings, which is also why I put this here, to say that maybe this is radioactive and maybe those blast marks might be related to some form of explosion. I had a few of these initially, where they're supposed to just be distractions, just generators. They happen to be brown, they're from the Dead by Daylight pack. This here is not actually supposed to be that, it is actually just to draw your attention upwards so that you'll notice that their tomb is up here. Here, this here, I put in fairly late. I don't actually think it's the best setup. I think if I twisted this 180 degrees so that this line here, where it always triggers, was over on this side, it'd be a lot better, because then you'd be more likely to trigger both of these, and then you have to kind of choose one to deal with, and you won't be able to get the other one. This here is a distraction. This is, 50 points for maybe the person's attention is over here when this is going off in their face. It works pretty well, honestly. There's a lot of kills here. It probably helps that I've got these hazard markings on the side here, hazard tape stuff, so that it draws the eye a little bit, just by having a little bit of colour. As we come up here, if they do notice this and decide to go straight for it, these are just here to try and prevent that. They're just 2 bolt shots that kind of cover this area a little bit, so it's a little bit harder to run up and just slash at this if you want to go for that. This here is not super effective. Sometimes it causes someone to back up a little bit or take their time. There's coming down here, and maybe that bomb trap activated, and it can essentially catch them here. It's not super effective. It mostly just gets shot. This one here is another distraction. It's not actually distracting from a trap though. It's distracting from this corridor, because I don't want people to realize that this is a hollow cube. This looks very much like it might just be like a second wave trap that happens to be there because of the bedrock. The sand generation here is very nice. It seems to consistently generate in this corner, which works quite well for me. But this is where the guard that come out after going down there a bit was from. He's got movement speed and bloodlust. The main reason for that is bloodlust triggers the combat. So he'll be in combat the whole way down while he's trying to chase you down there. So he'll be moving at that increased speed. And bloodlust is so that he actually does run down here. Most people, if they're going to check this at all, they'll probably check this block. But because of the sand generation, they often won't. And this block here, it's just fairly safe. I did at one point have this block here, the one that's empty at the moment, was where the hollow cube was, and the guard was just off to the left here. But too many times people would shoot it thinking it would shoot it, or trigger it thinking it might be an eagle eye hollow cube. And by putting it off here, off to the side, where it cannot trigger if it is a hollow cube, is for the best. And I think it has picture perfect. Yep. Just make it a little bit harder for someone to spot. But that's where the guard that I turned around and shot was coming from. Because what ends up coming up down here, this here is a bloodlust trap. That guy there is just there to look down, to look this way, and aggro. He'll aggro, he'll trigger both the two guards that have bloodlust on them. One is just around this corner here. The other one is the one that we're just talking about up there. So he is going to shoot down here if it gets a chance. A lot of the time he doesn't. You just pick him off pretty easily. It's a single enforcer on the ground. Nothing too spectacular. But this guy here is a little bit more dangerous because he will play his aggro animation behind this corner where you can't see him, and then come around the corner, so he's already aggroed, which is a pretty significant difference in the amount of time you have to deal with him if you didn't already notice him, although you can hear them pretty consistently from like anywhere, so that's true of like all warmongers though. Around here, this here is Relentless and Hunter. It fires pretty much anywhere here, and a decent number of people get caught by it. I think some people think that these is a full line of corrosion cubes. I don't know why. It's pretty obvious if you actually look that way. Yeah, it's just there. Sometimes people try to run past this shenanigan and deal with this instead if they've got a good way to deal with that, and they get caught by that. This is just a incinerator corridor. There's plenty of ways for people to deal with incinerator corridors, so it's just to try and force people to deal with the traps before it, like most incinerator corridors. This one here has a hunter bolt shot aimed at the last spot. This actually catches quite a few people off guard, because a lot of ways to deal with this end up with you potentially attacking twice here and here, and that gives this enough time to actually activate. This room here has been remodeled a couple times, and I'm not really happy with it even as it is, although much happier than what it was previously. I tried some like cannonbacks, some warmongers with incinerators on the walls, etc. This shape of room I'm just not super happy with, and the fact that like this is the way to go down is probably part of the problem. I could maybe make that a little bit better by putting, say, a triangle block here and maybe a full block here so that this is actually covered. But yeah, never really worked out what I want to do with that. This here is just for if people try to jump across, but also if they go down here. I don't actually know if this is worth the investment. I might be better off putting up a bolt shot there. And it's inlaid in the roof so that it's harder to see what it is. These are all just incinerators behind here. I believe these are catch and release. Yep, this base was made when catch and release was first made, so there's a pretty heavy focus on it. So what these are here for, they grab you hopefully no matter where, like, so if you try to go up over the incinerator, you'll still get grabbed by that, you get pulled into it, dropped, and when you're dropped, you'll fall into the fire that you've already triggered. And incinerators on both walls, so that if you deal with one of the incinerators, the other one can still fire and kill you. This is 4 wide, so none of them need Dragon Flame. All these holo cubes do need the Eagle Eye. I think they all have Eagle Eye, though this one is missing Picture Perfect. I don't know why. It's not really necessary. You'll notice that the corrosion cube here is solid, whereas the others are not. This is just so that you can't go in here and go through there. I also kind of like that this draws attention to this left section, so you can see that this is marked as a tomb. because I've been using the Trailblazer icon, which I believe was a beta exclusive for this, and in here, this killed way more people than it should have, considering you just need to drop in and you fall through safely, and then to get out you just need to grapple straight up. And the fact it's not opaque or anything, like, you can see all this. Like, a lot of people would come up to here, see this, and be like, nope. And I'm just sitting there like, you can see that that's not a corrosion cube just below that. Yeah, never could work it out why they were so scared of dropping down into this. It's not that hard to deal with. And, like, if you have grenades, you just throw a grenade down here and then you can drop down safely and grab it, even if you are worried of, like, an impaler or something on one of the walls that you can't quite see. Anyway, this is like, we're into the final room. This is where I believe about half the capacity for this base is stored. It could have been more, honestly. There's so much I could do with this room that I haven't, but I'm pretty happy with where it is overall. So we've got 4 Plasma Sentinels. 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe these all... I think this one here is the only one without the Eagle Eye. It does have Plasma Cloud though. It's because it's almost certainly the first one you're going to deal with, because... Oh no, that one has it as it only has Plasma Cloud as well. These two are closest ones to you as you approach the thing. You're not really going to run straight in and go all the way across the room successfully without dealing with anything, so there's no real need to put Eagle Eye on these two, but these ones that are a bit further away, they kind of need it in order to be threatening. Otherwise you can get way too close before you need to deal with them. Hornets are placed in positions that I would almost certainly never put a trap, and they're just flying up into the, like, general airspace of the room, so that they can just kind of cover a decent area and shoot, which makes this actually quite difficult to deal with, particularly if you're relying heavily on the Vault Lancer, because like getting Hornets and then grabbing the ammo can be quite difficult, because they'll mostly fall into the acid cubes down the bottom here, which you don't really want to be dealing with initially. The actual ground spaces, I put a few enforcers around where I could, and they're just to should generally be threatening in a similar vein to Plasma Sentinels. They have a pretty good range, pretty good fire rates. Unlike Plasma Sentinels, their projectiles actually travel at a decent speed, so you can't just dodge them by moving left to right as easily. You can still do it, but nowhere near as easily as you can with the Plasma Sentinel. So they're just generally around the room to make the room generally more threatening, and I've got a few bolt shots. They're mostly aimed at the Iron Claws, so that if you can react to the Iron Claw, if you get pulled in by the Iron Claw but then are able to react to get out of it, you sometimes get caught by the bolt shot, which is quite nice. There's a corrosion cube here blocking line of sight, so that this one over here, which would be completely non-threatening if you were here, can't fire at that, but especially if you're pulled through this by this. A lot of this design here is all designed because you will often be jumping in order to avoid the shots to start with, but also the plasma clouds that are all going to get laid down if you don't actually deal with the sentinels fast enough. And if you happen to double jump, these will often kill you if they can pull you all the way in, because you won't have the double jump needed to get out of the acid fast enough so that your grapple actually has a chance to land on something to get you out of it, which is what that's all about. Yeah, grab the gem mat, and then on the second wave, the only trap on the second wave is this one here, which is a overshot second wave. It triggers really far down because of the extra range. Right, so quite far down, and you have to go up this way. It's really difficult to like get to the roof, particularly because of how chaotic the roof is, because it's just made from the natural bedrock. I have been considering putting like an exit because there's no second wave traps. I had always intended to put more second wave traps so that as you're going back through here, maybe some of these bits here could have second wave traps that would target you so that there's actually justification for going all the way through. But honestly, I probably should just put an exit, you know, here-ish. Just a second wave holocube. Just have you run off. There's no real need to force people to run back through the whole map. Although it's not super long, so it doesn't take that long to do. Anyway, this is McVeytown. It is on social at the moment until and will remain on there until the description says otherwise, if you want to play it. But otherwise, the next map I'm going to be talking about is Waterboro, which is a normal difficulty map. It was just me testing out a particular setup that I think was interesting and new at the time. But until then, I shall see you next time.